So after so many delays and the large amount of hype building up to its release, The Flash is now out in cinemas. Produced on a large budget of over $200 million and directed by Andy Muschietti, who handled It Chapters 1 and 2. Since the days of Batman v Superman, there's been serious talks of a standalone Flash film, with Aquaman and Wonder Woman being given their own opportunities on the big screen, whereas The Flash seemed to be struggling to get his chance, partly due to the fact the direction they wanted to go with the story, and eventually settling on the famous Flashpoint comic, and Ezra Miller committing to the Fantastic Beasts films, causing scheduling conflicts, and with COVID coming into play resulting in major issues for all productions throughout the world. On top of that, Ezra Miller had gotten into serious trouble with the law, with Miller's mental health also being called into question, making the headlines and causing Warner Brothers to panic, as Ezra was not turning up to finish the film during post-production, and there were serious debates to whether the film would ever get finished. But thankfully The Flash would get completed, but many doubt Ezra will return to the franchise. Miller's career in the film business may have been heavily jeopardised, making the actor a risk to work with. Warner Brothers clearly have a lot of confidence in the picture, with heavy promotion worldwide, and early buzz from those who have seen early cuts of the film being overwhelmingly positive, though early talks can be misleading and often very biased, and the critical reviews that have been published have given a mixed reception. It seems the general public, however, have got their hopes high for the film, and I'm sure anyone over 30 years old, the biggest selling point is not the Flash himself, but Batman, with the return of Michael Keaton, to once again put on the cowl after 30 years. This review may contain some spoilers, but I've done my best to avoid anything crucial to the story. The film is set after the Justice League, and Barry Allen has figured out how to go back in time, and seeks advice from Bruce Wayne, who urges him not to do it, as it would cause serious damage. But Barry wants to return to a life where his mum is alive, and goes against Bruce's advice, and travels back in time to prevent his mother's death. But something goes terribly wrong, and he finds himself in an alternative reality without meta-humans, and another version of himself. Shortly after discovering things are not right, he finds out General Zod is about to invade Earth, so he enlists his younger self, seeks out an older Bruce Wayne, and finds the whereabouts of the Kryptonian castaway, Supergirl, in order to save this world and return to his universe. Hype for a movie is always exciting if the trailers are well produced, and if you see things you don't want to miss on the big screen, i.e. Keaton back as Batman, but we've all been burned before by falling for the hype and anticipation, and the end results not meeting one's expectations. The Phantom Menace will always remain a key factor for me in not getting too wrapped up in the hype. Of course I couldn't help myself when it came to the announcement that The Flash would encounter the Batman I grew up on. It was hard to resist, and getting the chance to see an early screening of The Flash with some scenes missing, and now finally seeing the final cut, the movie totally lived up to my expectations and then some. The opening act of the film totally won me over. It was utter bonkers, and seeing stuff I hadn't seen before in a superhero action sequence. It was so entertaining, and felt like I was watching a 90s cartoon come to life. Strangely, the film does have a 90s feel to it, feeling more like a 1990s superhero movie than what has been put out previously by Warner Brothers and Disney with their Marvel franchise. Straight away, the film is full of comedic moments. It's not just cheesy gags or one-liners, but genuine funny scenes with the characters and how they interact. As Barry heads back in time and finds his alternative self, Ezra does a fantastic job of creating a difference between the two, and of course Back to the Future gags come into play that work a treat. With Barry finding himself in a world with no meta-humans and with General Zod about to invade, he has to find someone to help, and that's where Batman comes into play. Keaton has seemingly stepped back into the role of the Dark Knight with ease. Seeing this old Bruce Wayne who doesn't really care is quite amusing, and with the situation they find themselves in, he has no option but to return as Batman. It was a joy seeing this version of the Caped Crusader again. He gets to do far more things he's ever done in the previous films from 1989 and 1992, loaded with gadgets, and getting into some crazy elaborate fight scenes. Quite a few lines of dialogue have been lifted from Tim Burton's Batman for the fans. One in particular had been Stitch's when he says, "How much do you weigh?" Now, its comedy and tone may not be for everyone. Some may think it's tonally weird and feels too wacky in places to be taken seriously, but honestly it's the goofiness and cartoony-like approach to it which I loved, and made it feel refreshing outside of Marvel's recent output where they are becoming tired and formulaic. Michael Keaton just oozes confidence when he's in the costume, and the composer of the film, Benjamin Wallfish, clearly is having a lot of fun making use of the classic Danny Elfman theme as much as he can. This is what's missing in these modern superhero movies, a good solid main theme that can be deployed to get the audience excited, and when I heard the classic Batman theme, it just left a big smile on my face. Obviously, Ben Affleck is back as Batman and gets to show off in the opening act using his ridiculously huge motorbike, but his best moment and one of my favourite scenes with Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne is when he has a quiet one-to-one chat with Barry. Ben just nails the scene, and I just wish he had this type of material to work with in his previous outings as the Dark Knight. If you are familiar with the story Flashpoint or the Flashpoint Paradox animated movie, which is highly recommended by the way, then you will have a good idea how the story plays out. They have made many changes, but the core structure of the story is intact, so when they encounter Supergirl, it follows familiar beats to the animated movie. With Kal-El not in this world, Supergirl has to save the day with Batman and the Flash, and Sasha Calle makes for a great version of Kara. We find a Supergirl who's been trapped for many years and with little interaction, so she's very guarded and quiet, but gets involved to help them, and as you can imagine, she gets to use her powers to the fullest, causing serious damage. But she doesn't get much to do apart from getting into a battle with Zod, and I wished she had more screen time to give her character more time to breathe and the audience to get to know her a little more. As mentioned with the score, the composer doesn't go with a modern sound, taking cues from his work on Shazam, going with a classic approach, tapping into what made 80s and 90s scores so memorable, of course using the classic Danny Elfman theme for Batman, and Benjamin does make nods to other themes which I won't spoil, but I don't recall a strong main theme for The Flash or Supergirl, which both had memorable themes from previous appearances on the big and small screen. Of course I wasn't expecting them to use, say, Jerry Goldsmith's theme for Supergirl from 1984, as this is a different version of the character, but to my ears nothing was there that stood out and stuck in my head. But aside from that, the score smashes it with the action and even the emotional moments to really complement the movie. The visual effects on my first viewing genuinely looked pretty good and showcased some really creative visuals, but you could easily see in some shots it was clearly CGI that needed an extra pass to finesse it. Things looked too rubbery and a few bobblehead moments on the Flash. Rumours circulated that the effects would be improved from the preview screenings, which I thought didn't make much sense so close to the release. Seeing the final cut, yet nothing was improved. So for a film stuck in post-production for so long, you'd expect some of the big visual effects sequences to be fine-tuned, but honestly it doesn't detract from the story and didn't really bother me. Honestly, this was the funniest and most enjoyable DC movie I've watched in a long time. We've had some good films from Warner's and their DC universe with Shazam, Wonder Woman and The Batman. They are strong movies, but The Flash just had a great sense of fun about it that makes me want to watch it again. Whereas say The Batman, which is objectively better made with its higher and consistent production values and direction, but I didn't have much of an urge to re-watch it, which is the opposite with The Flash. Despite Ezra Miller's crazy and dodgy antics off camera and coming across as mad as a parrot in interviews, does a superb job in the film. We mustn't forget this is a Flash movie, not a Batman one, and you find yourself invested in the Flash's journey thanks to Ezra's performance as two versions of himself to hold the film together. The Flash definitely lived up to the hype for me, and I'm really excited to see where the DC Universe goes next, having been burnt out for a while on superhero flicks, with many being a bit so-so as of late. The Flash has certainly ignited my interest again. As we say goodbye to one universe of the DC world and switch into a new direction, let's hope James Gunn and his vision for the future can maintain the quality, and with the director Andy Muschietti rumoured to be directing The Brave and the Bold, the future is looking very promising. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and click the bell to be notified of my latest retrospectives and reviews. Big thanks to my patrons for supporting the channel. If you want to get involved and gain early access to my content and exclusive videos, then follow the link below.